Welcome to Cosmic Comics, Games and Collectibles, your zen of geekism. We carry comics old and new, magazines, toys, games like Pokemon, Magic, D&D. Want Godzilla, Ultraman, Star Trek, Ninja Turtles, Funko Pops? You'll find it all here. Shop our Cosmic Sound Room and pick up a record or two. Enjoy our Comic Coffee Lounge with a cup of Sasquatch coffee or a delicious menu item while geeking out over a super cool movie on our big screen. Come by and say hello to Maui. Cosmic Comic, Games and Collectibles. Superman loves us, and so will you.
Hi everyone, Daphne Lage here. Join Nita Lanning and me on the Rage Into the Vlogs show, where we talk about everything, nothing, and all the bits in between. Looking for hour-long conversations about indie comics, social media marketing, and crowdfunding, with the occasional rant and story time? Head on over to the Rage Into channel on YouTube, Mondays through Fridays at 11 a.m. Eastern to join in the chat.
Hit the button.
And good evening, everybody. I am in the dark again. What is it with the light in this place? I need to. Okay, maybe that helps a little bit. Gosh, it's I've got this giant spotlight. I got a light behind me, and it's like everything's just a shadow. So maybe I should work into that. Maybe just do the silhouette podcast. We'll find something to do with that. Make it work for us instead of against us. I am RJ Carter, Senior Managing Editor here at criticalblast.com. Chief Envelope Licker for Critical Blast Logistics, Receptionist for Critical Blast Consulting, Myopic Proofwriter for Critical Blast Proofreading and Publishing. Do we do anything else? Not yet. We probably will within the next 6 months. We're branching out all over the place. Tonight, I know we normally do crowdfunding campaigns. We look at Kickstarters. We look at Indiegogos. Tonight, there's no campaign. That doesn't mean put your wallets away, because we do have a book. The book is ready and published, so we're going to take you to the website, and we're going to talk with the creator tonight. We have with us Mr. Josh Wilson. Josh, welcome to the show, sir.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Now, I've got to tell you, when you first gave me the title here, and I had not gone to the website, I'm like, Twilight Custard. Many things came to mind. A Western was not one of them.
Yeah, I know. It's a funny story. The story itself came out of the name first. I got the name from one of those random band name generators back in like 2007. And I said Twilight Custard and the Busted Deadly. And I was like, wow, I've got to use that for something. It's incredible. It just evokes so many kind of like ideas into my head. And so I just kind of held on to it and then just sort of like pulled the story out of the name, basically.
I've done that. I've written and published some books as well. I do come up with cool titles and work around that. It's hard though. It's much easier to just have the story and then say, well, what am I going to call this thing?
That's true. Sometimes for me though, like if I'm sitting there and I'm like just trying to pull apart a story, like sometimes the creativity, it's hard to get those juices flowing unless you have a little kernel to kind of like pull from. So I like to have just like some kind of little kernel to pull from. It makes it a lot easier for me personally.
Yeah. Now, had you done graphic novels before this one? Is this your first foray, or you got some experience behind you?
This is my first full graphic novel. My writing experience comes mostly from writing screenplays, movie scripts, and things like that. And so I had decided, since I loved comics so much, and because of the pandemic, filming wasn't really happening. Getting in a room with a bunch of people and making movies wasn't happening. And so I was like, what else can I do that requires very little interaction with people? And so I started sort of a web comic called Dangerous Enemies that I have on my Gumroad page. And then that kind of did a few issues of that, did a couple more test issues, and then thought, hey, I've got this movie script called Twilight Custard. Honestly, I think it'd be a way better graphic novel. And so that's kind of what I did. I wrote the whole thing out and kind of converted it from movie script to graphic novel script, and then found an artist.
Now, first of all, have you worked on any movies that we might have heard of?
No, definitely not. I've done some short films on myself just to kind of, because I'm a writer first and foremost, but then, you know, it's hard to get someone to read a script, especially a movie script. So I've got, just got this pile of scripts and nothing to do with them. So I made a couple of short films, and then I decided from there to start making some some comics and graphic novels out of them. So yeah, so no, definitely nothing you've heard of. Just me and my wife and a couple of my friends who have read my scripts, and it's just like, what the hell do I do with these things now that I have them?
Well, you may have actually turned them into more profitable means of getting them produced by going to the graphic novel route, because apparently that's what Hollywood and Netflix read is the comic books rather than
sure
scripts.
Seems like it. Yeah, definitely these days.
So bypass the casting couch, go straight to the audience with a comic book, and then just wait for the phone to ring.
Yeah, let's hope. Knock on wood.
Yeah. So we got some folks in the chat here already watching to see what's going on tonight. Hail Intense Webs, Clyde Crash Cup, good to see you here too. Glad that you're both here. Share it. We got this is a really cool book, guys. I've looked at some of the preview pages on this, and I'll just bring it on up here. Twilight Custard. Before Roswell, there was Eagle Pass. So this is. Why don't you go ahead and just give us the elevator pitch on this one before I start scrolling?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a kind of a loner cowboy figure who loses his wife a few years before the comic starts. And he happens upon this broken android pilot from another galaxy who crash landed on Earth previously. And he agrees to help this android pilot get back to his ship and return to hopefully see his wife again. And that's essentially it. It's kind of like a buddy story between the two, trying to get across the border and get to this ship, which both kind of it takes place over the Mexican and Texas border in the 1800s, and so it's kind of a really volatile situation. And they're both kind of fighting over the scraps, and he's trying to get this android back to the ship that's being held at a fort there.
Okay, and this is to get the android back to the android's wife?
No, the android back to the android's ship. And the android promises Twilight Custard that he'll be able to see his wife again if he helps him.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because there is a bit of time dilation distortion that happens in this story, and I get that just from the dialogue itself. Greg Levitt, hail to you too, sir. Glad you're here. The book by itself is $20, and you can get. I want the pen. I don't even know the character that well, and I'm like, yeah, I like that pen. I'm going to order that.
He's cool.
How big is the book?
The book is, I've got one right here actually. So it's about 136 pages. It's standard size here. Yeah, it's got some got some girth to it. Yeah, for sure. Got a nice spine, but yeah, it's a good read. You can, if you really wanted to, you can sit down and knock it out in one read. But some people take it in 2 or 3. But it's basically movie length because it started again as a movie script and then turned into this guy. So you can probably get it done in about 2 hours.
And y'all saw it in his hand right there. The book's done, folks. You order the book, you get shipped the book. It's not a wait for it to be finished kind of deal here.
That's true. Yeah, it came out January 11th, and I've done all the publishing marketing myself. I wrote the thing. Again, I found this amazing artist from Indonesia. His name is William Mulyo, and commissioned him to do all the art. It took us about 10 months to get all that art back. And then worked with a designer to get the cover and a publisher here in Denver to get it printed out. And so that's what we're doing, kind of grassroots sort of thing.
Yeah, I'm seeing so many cool artists get discovered through both the crowdfunding and the self-publishing alignment, because even as far back as 10 years ago, or as near back as 12, how do you say it? As recently as 10 years ago, it was a lot more difficult to self-publish.
Oh yeah,
it is now. I mean, now you got the print on demand. You've got all these groups that are forming, these networks online for comic creation. You've got the crowdfunding method where hey, I don't have the money for it, but I now have a way to get the money for it. Yeah, it's great, man. It's never been easier to meet people and then collaborate with those people, because I met William over Reddit, just through the forums there, which has been an awesome community to help me get my book and to help me get my footing in the comic world. It's just been an invaluable resource over there at Reddit. But I met with William, and we just went back and forth through email and Dropbox for the whole 10-month period, and it was a great experience. Now you have the you have 10 pages, not the first 10 pages, just 10 pages.
Yes.
For review here. And I just, first of all, everyone who's an artist in comics knows horses are hard to draw.
I did not know that, actually.
Yeah, the horse is the hardest animal to draw for whatever reason it is.
Yeah.
but it took me a second to realize that he wasn't just riding along the horse. He's got the android in a knapsack on his back.
Definitely.
Like, you know, it's just half an android.
It's like the Iron Giant meets Yoda, right?
I was going to say, the design just reminds me so much of Iron Giant. And I didn't know if it was intentionally or if that was the artist's interpretation.
That was some of my visual cues. So I've sent him over a huge packet full of like visual references and things that I had in my mind. And I grew up just absolutely loving the Iron Giant. So I knew that I wanted it to be kind of a scaled down, small kind of nod to that character, because I still love that movie. I think it's fantastic. So here he is. He's riding across, and they just talk. And I love the fact that I'm just talking with the guy. You know, I'm not freaked out that this is a metal person. I may have missed all the freak out. Yeah, this is like right after the freak out. Actually, they're getting to know each other, and he's kind of getting a little bit more comfortable.
Yeah, and he's just very easy talking with him, and the robot's the same way. Like, you know, and this is where he's talking about, you know, how he got there. Mm-hmm. You know, he's an explorer, and you know, he's collecting data, and how far away he is. You know, he's further away than that farthest star you can see. Mm-hmm. And I thought this was interesting here. He said, you know, the cowboy said, "What in God's name have I gotten myself into?" And the robot says, "That's a messy word, isn't it?" I'm like, what's a messy word?
I think he's referring to God there.
I thought so.
Yeah.
But here's where you talk about how he's going to, he's promised him he can go back and see his wife, his dead wife.
Right.
And this is when he starts talking about time in a way that's not linear anymore.
Yeah.
Because he talks about how we will send a probe, and that 4 million years later, he's sent to investigate it, and he ends up here. So it's like,
yeah, and it's kind of what I wanted to do, and I hope that I succeeded, but I wanted it to make it, you know, a lot more conversational, because it is the story is just the two of them, and how this cowboy is interpreting what the robot is saying. There are a few times in the story where the cowboy's just like, okay, it's enough with the explanation, because it's going right over my head. Let's just do what we're doing.
Yeah, I love that, because he's doing the same thing here. It's like, you know, 4 million years later, we got it. He's like, oh, I'm glad we cleared that up.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, but if you dig in there is enough to kind of parse through. But essentially, the nod that he's referencing, the probe that they sent out, and it's referenced here on the cover as well, is the Voyager record that they sent out. So
yeah,
it's got the
gold record.
Yeah, the gold record. And so, you know, we send that thing out. It travels through space through years and years and years. This civilization picked it up, and they're able to send him to us by bending time and space, and he just kind of undershot rather, and ended up in the 1800s and crashed on Earth, and that's kind of where he is at the moment.
Man, it takes me back to a short story that I wrote around 1998. It was based on the whole Voyager type thing here. And it was just this crazy old man's trying to show up at the at the rocket scientist place. It's like, look, I found aliens left a message on a record platter, and they're all like, dude, we record music digitally. You know, kids walk around with it in their pockets. You're going to tell us an advanced alien civilization used vinyl to send the message out? And he takes it back, you know, all dejected, and he's in his garage, and the garage is all kind of cattywampus, like a Dr. Seuss place. Mm-hmm. And on the back wall of the garage, he's got the pieces of the Voyager satellite sat up against it, because he is the alien planet that we sent it to. And they don't believe that, you know, because that was the technology we had at the time.
Yeah, I love that, man. So is your background mostly science fiction? Is that what you gravitate towards?
Science fiction, fantasy, yeah.
Yeah, science fiction for me, definitely. Like, I'm a huge Star Trek guy, and I just love anything science fiction. So, and you know, when I was doing scripts and short stories like yourself, I just kind of thought, like, just over the last, you know, 4 or 5 years, you know, realizing by reading graphic novels instead of trades and stuff, that like comics don't have to all be superheroes and fantasy stuff. Like, you can really get into really deep sci-fi and character studies and stuff on the page, and it's just as interesting and visual.
It's just a vessel. What you put in it is up to you.
Absolutely.
Yes, and regarding Voyager, everyone remembers the bald, beautiful Persis Kambata, R.I.P., as V'ger in Star Trek 1. Yes.
Oh, yes.
in fact, you know, what I love doing with science fiction, especially other people's sandboxes, is try to come up with stopgaps. Like, we've seen Star Trek. What was the one with where they did the earliest ones with Sam Beckett in the role? I forget, but it was supposed to be like, the very first launch of the Enterprise.
Oh yeah, with Scott Bakula, the Enterprise series.
Yeah.
There we go. I'm actually in the middle of watching that right now.
Yeah, so it's like, we've got touch screens, we've got holograms and everything, and then in the Kirk era, we've got tapes and flip switches and blinking lights. I'm like, we need a story to explain why we went to that kind of technology for a while.
Yeah,
because we've seen it. It's canon. it's all switch flips and stuff like that. I was like, maybe it's just an art aesthetic, or
and then like Deep Space Nine and Voyager, they get into holding like iPads. Basically, they basically have iPads before iPads came out, which is funny.
Oh yeah, I mean they definitely predated a lot of the stuff we've got, but but again, they went back to this real 60s kind of style computers. There was a big wall of everything.
Yeah.
I want that explained. I can't, So one of the things that this is Indian territory. So there's danger, just walking around the woods, you can get attacked and stuff. And we find out that the robot can, tune in to a brainwave and communicate telepathically.
Yeah, exactly. And it's kind of interesting because you see, with the mention of God and then the mention of Native Americans here in a bit, where Twilight has all these preconceived notions living on Earth with all this stuff, and then but the android coming in from outside of it is kind of like trying to understand like why two people of the same species are so different and have such conflict, and then it comes up here, but they end up rescuing a little Native American child and kind of changing, I guess, Twilight's sort of mindset on some of that stuff, and also showing him what the android can do and that he's kind of not fibbing when he tells him about his powers.
Yeah, because the android's there's a lot packed into this half a robot.
Yeah.
Because he's not just telepathic, he's not just speaking Earth language. He projects things into people's heads, and he can tell when when danger, like they're in the dark and they hit the edge of this cliff here, or not a cliff but a pit.
Yeah,
and that's where you mentioned he's going to rescue the boy who fell in it, and he's got a thing through his leg.
Yeah, you'll see too. It just hinted at in this preview. Towards the end of it, you'll see the android's eyes start to glow blue, and he has this other ability where he can take any surrounding from any period of time and project it into a blue hologram over what's actually in front of him. So they're in a jail cell later on, and he takes a past event from before that jail was there, and there's a bear, and it turns into a lush forest, and this blue bear comes in and it scares the guards so they can break out. But he can basically project these holograms based on past events in the area.
So why is it important to the robot? I mean, if he's an explorer, he's just there to find out, what's this planet like. Why is it important to him that they help this kid?
I think a couple things. So one, I think he wants to prove something to Twilight. That Twilight has the ability to do more than he thinks that he can, to show him that he has a bit of compassion, a little bit of fire left inside of him. Because I think, when we first meet Twilight, he's kind of like down and out and still very much mourning his wife and kind of going through the motions of everyday life and has kind of given up living. And so I think he's kind of teaching him these lessons. But I also think that, sort of like Star Trek, like a lot of the personality of this robot is like he's very curious, very adventurous. He is an explorer first and foremost, and so he's curious about the culture and curious about what they can do together as well.
And of course, so they do save the boy. He's like, the boy's already been saved because you're here. I get sort of a almost Dr. Manhattan kind of vibe from the conversation because of the way this robot sees time.
Yeah, exactly. I think it gets a little bit into this too, not to give everything away, but like essentially he's able to see time as sort of a flat surface and events that happen, and the more likely they become to reality, the clearer he sees them, sort of. So he knows that they were going to save that boy. It was always going to happen because it has happened to him already.
Yeah, and I'm just following the action here, guys.
Yeah, sure.
Y'all can do the same thing. By the way, the website is easy to find. It's twilightcustard.com. The link is below the chat and pinned to the top of the chat. So
that's exactly right. And William did a great job. Obviously, like again, I'm so lucky to find him. He did all the art hand drawn and scanned in, and then he did we did the lettering and speech bubbles digitally over top of his hand drawn work. So it's just, he did such a great job, and I'm so lucky to find him. And again, I mention this every interview, but it's just so amazing that someone from the other side of the planet who has never been to Texas and doesn't, was able to draw it so well. Like I'm never taken out of it. He just really captured. He must have, checked out a lot of references or cowboy movies or whatever, but he just really nailed it all. Honestly, I thought.
Yeah. Speaking of nailed, he almost gets it
Yeah.
nailed by these pegs here when he falls in the pit and yanks the boy up.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when the rest of the tribe shows up here. And
yeah, he thinks that they're going to let him drop, but then they save him. We've got it, mostly on the website. I'm working to get, again, just kind of doing it all myself, calling different comic shops to get it into physical comic shops. Right now, we've got it I'm local to Denver, so we've got it in 2 shops here, Mutiny and Mile High. I've got it in 1 in Santa Monica, California, and 1 in Chicago as well. So if you guys, anybody's listening is in the area, Heidi Ho Comics in Santa Monica and Chicago Comics in Chicago as well.
all right, Harwenberg is in the chat. He is connected to several different comic shops to promote his own independent book. So Harwenberg, if you got any suggestions for Josh to promote his book too, the people who are indie friendly, throw them out in the chat and we can keep track of them that way. So you did this in black and white intentionally?
It was a little bit of both. So I knew from the story that I wanted to have a contrast, and I wanted to visually, because again, in a movie, it'd be much easier to show his holographic powers. But in visual, in the comic world, I wanted to have a real contrast between the hologram and reality. And so I thought the black and white and blue worked really well, but it's also, obviously, since I was doing it all myself, it's much more cost effective to have it mostly on grayscale. Although surprisingly, even just adding a little bit of color, there's probably maybe 20 pages out of the 136 that have color to them, but even that really jacked the cost of printing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
If there's color on the page, it's a color page.
Yeah, exactly. Even just the little eyeballs
process
there. Yeah.
So you might as well just color the whole page blue.
Exactly. Yeah, it was worth it though, because I really think it works. And again, not in the preview. I thought this was kind of a good front and back sort of little slice of the story that you could kind of read and see if you're driving with it. But I do kind of wish there was some previews also of the color as well, because I think that's a really interesting part of it.
Yeah, and so this is where the Native American is picking up the robot, the android. Does he have a name?
He just calls him the machine throughout the book.
Okay. Well, he picks him up, and I guess it's sort of like thinking, like, I'm going to take this,
Mm-hmm.
and we get the eyes light up, and he puts him back down against the tree, and they're like, well, why didn't he take you? He said, I showed them what was at stake, what more they had to lose. He said, will you show me? He said, you don't want to know.
Yeah, basically.
But just from those 10 pages there, and these are 10 sequential pages, I believe.
Yes,
they're
exactly.
not jumping around. They're not the beginning, they're not the end, but it's just a nice piece out of the middle here. This was a good segment to cut out and make a sample, because it really gives an idea of the flow of the story, that we can see how the artist can do sequentials.
Mm-hmm.
It's very consistent between the panels, as far as you can always, the same person always looks like the same person.
Yeah, that's tricky for an artist sometimes, isn't it?
Yeah, I've seen some artists not even care. They're just like, yeah, it's the same guy, he's wearing the same hat.
Yeah, I can't say anything because I cannot draw.
I can't either.
Yeah.
Stick figures, that's it for me.
Mm-hmm.
So how long did this how long did it take you to put this together, from the moment you sat down to finally do it?
It's tough because the story itself took on a lot of iterations. Like I said, it was first a movie script and then turned into a comic. When I actually decided to write the movie script, it probably took me, because I had to pull again the story from the title, and that took me to write the whole script and to conceptualize it was probably maybe a 3-month period, and then transferring it from movie script to comic script, because those are very different things, it took me a couple weeks probably, and then like I said, the going back and forth with William with the artwork took about 10 months. So overall, yeah, maybe 2 years or so from start to finish.
What kind of once it was started as a graphic novel and you're well underway, what kind of hurdles did you run into that you had to get over? So things that maybe you didn't expect to, since you're more of a movie script guy and now you're doing graphic novels. What got kicked back? You're like, oh, I've got to rethink that.
I really loved the process of turning it into a graphic novel script, because you're really like, when you're thinking in movie styles, you're thinking of the flow of the camera and things are moving, but then you really have to take still snapshots. It's like taking a movie and taking Polaroids of it and taking those pictures and making it make sense without having any sort of flow or animation to it. So I really loved kind of the process of figuring out how to make what I know made sense in my mind and on the script make sense in visual images. And I was really lucky again to find William, because I didn't have a lot of notes for him. Like, I actually started with a different artist first when it was still a movie script, and I just gave it to them and wanted to see kind of what they were able to draw from it. But then I quickly knew after getting those pages back, I was like, no, I really want to have full control and tell an artist exactly what to draw on each panel and exactly what to draw on each page. And that's when I converted it to the graphic script. And that's when I gave it to William, who is like super great at interpreting my words and descriptions into what you see on the page. Like, very few times did I have to go, actually, I meant this, or could you make this a little bit different? Every once in a while, but for the most part, he really nailed it.
Yeah, I mean, as a script writer, you know the whole storyboard concept, which is very similar to the comic book version of the movie. But at the same time, it's not really a comic book, because you don't have the panel layout, for one thing, is different. And I don't mean just that it's a vertical stack on horizontal pages, but with a situation like this, the cut of that panel accentuates the fall or the rise that the kid's going through right there. Yeah. It's not just a square showing this. That's not just the camera panning, back and forth like that.
Yeah, something else that was interesting too is that you're thinking of the story again in images, and then you think of the images as a page that makes sense and looks appealing, and then you think, after you're getting halfway through a script, you're like, what also makes sense is what two pages look good together and flow, because when you're opening the book, you're looking at both pages together, and you really have to think. Because there's some flashback sequences or dream sequences where it's just two pages, so it would really need them to open up and be in that dream experience and then turn out of it. So I had to kind of retool that a little bit too, to make sure all the pages lined up to where they needed to be.
And, when you have a big reveal of some kind, you got to retool it so that it happens at the turn of the page, not in the middle of the page. It just has a bigger impact that way.
Exactly.
Herrenberg has provided a link for us here. It's on his website where his books are at. This is 190 different stores.
Wow. Thank you. Wow, that's amazing.
So
I appreciate that. Thank you so much. I've been, all the books that I've gotten into, I've basically, all the stores rather, I've physically gone and talked to them and had good luck, but the emails I'm sending out have not gotten a lot of returns. So I'm trying to figure out the best way to sort of do that. But
yeah, and they are also in Colorado at Mile High, in Littleton and Kapow and Colorado Springs. So if you're in that area and you haven't hit those stores yet, go talk to them. They talk indie.
That's amazing. Yeah, the indie comic community, having been into this now, trying to promote my work and whatnot, is just been like so supportive and so awesome. Like it's a great group, whether you're in here like this on the podcast or on Twitter or Reddit or Instagram, they're all just super supportive and lifting of each other, which I think is awesome, because sometimes creative people think that it's a competition, and I just think that it's just definitely not. There's room for all of us, and it only helps you to help someone else. So I think that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean it's a competition, but it's the kind of competition where you pick each other up so they can still be in the race.
Mm-hmm. A lot of collaborations too. I mean, like you're gonna pick different artists, different letterers, different editors, and stuff for each book most of the time, I think.
So what other graphic novels have you worked on, or is this the first one of many to come?
That's the first full graphic novel. The first thing I did in print. Again, there's a digital series called Dangerous Enemies that you can find on my Gumroad page. It's just Gumroad/GhostPod Publishing. We're 3 issues into a 6-issue arc there. And right now I'm just kind of working to kind of round out my writing portfolio. So I'm doing a couple more shorts. I'm writing it's just a 3-page short that has Spider-Man, Wolverine, and Rhino in it, because I just want to kind of like show that I can kind of write in different voices and stuff. And then after all that, I've got another idea for another novel that I'm going to start to kind of tweak. But that one I'm going to have to crowdsource, because I kind of just gave this one everything I got, financially and otherwise. So
Why? Yeah. So I'm sure that you had already heard of crowdfunding and Kickstarter and Indiegogo and stuff. Why did you not take it through a crowdfunding in the first place? Why pay for it out of your own pocket right away?
It might be a lack of confidence, because I know that no one knows me as a comic creator yet. And so I didn't see myself in that space doing well first off. To me, this was I want to show people what I can do, whether it be, publishers or comic companies or even fans. So I wanted to produce this thing that I knew that I loved the story of and that I knew that I believed in, produce it myself. And then what I'm doing right now in the next, year or two to come is just trying to get people to see it and care about it as much as I do. And then eventually, hopefully the next book, I can get some crowdfunding or a publisher that cares about me or something. So this is just, I thought, put everything into this and show people what they can expect from me or what they can get out of me, I guess.
All right. So just to kind of project into the future, then what the next project might be financially, if you were to have crowdfunded this one, what's the ballpark goal you would have had to set for $1?
Yeah, I don't mind talking about that. I can definitely, let's see, I'm trying to think about when you come with, the art, and then you come up with the printing. So luckily with the printing, I'm able to sell it at a price that I can at least print more copies. I can just kind of keep that cycle going. So it's kind of self-sustaining. I put the money up to get I printed 150 copies, just reached my 100 copy goal of this month. And then I'm just going to print more kind of as they go. And the money that I get kind of goes back into that. Altogether, the whole thing cost me probably, I would say, about $7,000, I think, all in.
Okay.
Yeah. So, probably I'd say between $7,000 and $10,000 for the next book would be good. Because the next one I definitely want to do in full color. I've got a story in mind that I want to write. And so I definitely want to do that in full color. So it's probably actually going to maybe be more like 12 or 15,000 if I had to guess.
Yeah. Well, at least you've got this one to, to throw up, say, look, done it.
Yeah,
been
exactly.
Here before. Help us make a bigger one, more colorful one.
Yeah. And I haven't done crowdsourcing, but I've heard that the people from GoFundMe, there are people out there that even if they don't know you as a creator, they're looking for comics to back. They love comics in general. And so I'm excited to get into that space too.
And there's two different, there's many different factions. If I've heard it explained, like Kickstarter is where, people go to buy the bad girl art, things like the Lady Death knockoffs and stuff like that.
Okay.
And then Indiegogo is where people go to look for the 1990s Image superhero muscular guys.
Okay, I didn't know that. That's awesome, dude.
I've seen both on both, and I've seen stuff that I would have never expected to have seen in comics before. Again, getting away from the whole capes and tights stuff. Like you said earlier, there's a lot of non-superhero stuff out there that's really, really good.
Yeah.
And Western is a genre that's been getting a comeback.
Yeah, there's a book that just came out a year or two ago called Pulp that I really, really loved. I don't know if you've heard of that, but it was fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah, and in the comics themselves, I've seen Mike Murphy has a Western out. Brian Kriskow has a Western out. His is a little bit stranger. It's called Six Gun Gorilla, but it's still a Western, and it still actually functions with real world because he's a circus gorilla that was trained to be a sharpshooter.
That's awesome.
He's got a cannon-sized 6-shooter that he uses.
That's what I love about comics, man. It's like you can have any idea you want, no matter how crazy it is, and no one's going to tell you not to do it because you're just going to, especially with indie comics, you're like, no, I'm going to make this freaking comic.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like, the crazier it is, the bigger the budget. It's all ink on paper.
Yeah, exactly. That's amazing.
So the next book you got, are you looking at another Western, or you have...
No, this one... I don't have a specific affinity to Westerns. I do like them, but it's just kind of, again, the story that I pulled out of that title. So, no, the next story is just a very blank concept right now. So I'll probably just totally confused by explaining it, but I'll try. It's essentially, there's a scientist who accidentally makes a tear in reality into another dimension, and he sees a woman in this other dimension that he falls for, and then the tear kind of closes, and he kind of spends his time and energy, no matter what it costs, no matter how dangerous it is for the entire planet, trying to get back to that dimension, to this woman, and in turn creates tears all over time and space, and accidentally invents ghosts. The graphic novel is called The Invention of Ghosts. So
Cool.
I'm excited to really figure out what that story is going to turn into. That's just kind of the idea that I have in my head. So I'm excited
So
about
this
it.
is a high-tech supernatural blending here.
Yeah,
much like this was Western and Alien. I keep wanting to say, this is like Cowboys and Aliens, but nobody liked that movie except me.
I like that movie too. I don't know that there's much similarities aside from a cowboy and another being from another planet, but I actually like that too. I'll watch anything with Daniel Craig in it, honestly.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Have you taken this to any of the people that you've done the movies with? I mean, you've got the movie chops. Have you sent this off to a Netflix or to somebody else to try to option?
Not yet, honestly, because I don't know how to reach those people. But right now, I'm just going to try to build a fan base to show that I can sell some copies and see what I can do from there. I'm excited. This summer, I'm starting to do some of the Comic Cons. I'm going to be at the Denver Comic Con. I'm doing one in Salt Lake City. So I want to go there and kind of meet the fans and meet some of the people there. It's kind of serendipitous, but someone who I thought could be a good Twilight was always Elijah Wood, oddly enough. And he's going to be at one of the cons that I'm doing, so I'm going to make sure he gets a copy just in case. You're like, hey, man, here's a cool idea. Yeah.
We'll tell your agent that you're made for this role.
Exactly. He likes to do weird things.
Yeah. And I can, imagine this would do actually very well in some of the Southwestern state Comic Cons.
Yeah. I need to get
definitely
to Texas.
Texas.
Definitely. Yeah. I've contacted a few stores in Austin waiting to hear back. But yeah, that's definitely for sure got to happen.
All right. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I should have asked about this book that I haven't yet. Folks, I'm going to remind people here at the top. This is TWILIGHTCUSTARD.com. The book's only $20 for, what'd you say, 120 pages?
136.
136. You're going to pay more than that for your 48-page crowdfunded comic. You got a shipping cost that you know it's on it, or?
Yeah, I think anywhere in the U.S. is $5 flat rate. So.
Look at that. There you go.
I try to make it as cheap as possible without losing my mind. So
yeah. Oh, the shipping is all I do. In fact, Frog G, if you're still in the chat, look what I'm putting out. This is, I got a whole stack of these that are getting ready to go in the mail. I know one of them's yours.
That's the fun part, right?
Yes. They're not my comic though. I ship them for other people.
That's awesome.
But $25 outlay, make it a $35 outlay and get the cool hat pin here. I'm going to guess that's like about an inch and a half.
Yeah, I think it's an inch and a half. Yep.
Yeah, it just looks cool. I don't know where his legs are. I'm assuming I'm assuming once he gets back to the ship, he can. Well, he might need Twilight to help pilot the ship since he can't move when he's left on the ground. There,
we'll see. Yeah, we'll see.
And I do love how the Voyager record is turned into the sunset behind the mesa there.
Yeah, I had to put that in there because it's just hinted at so subtly, and I know that that's where it came from, and there's a little hint, so I wanted to kind of make it a bit more obvious on the cover, and I think it's just a really neat image that we came up with. That's from a guy named Chris Allen who did the cover work and the digital, like the internal design. There's some extra pages too with some script and pictures and stuff as well, and he helped kind of lay that out as well. So all kinds of stuff in there.
All right, yeah, yes, Frog. I'm sending you a hug soon. I'm sending you an embrace. People have been waiting for this book to come out, and it's taken me longer than normal to fulfill this one. I spent almost all week on it now.
Wow,
usually I had a 3-day turnaround. Yeah. Well, I'm interested in this. I want to see it, so I will place my order afterwards. What's your turnaround on getting things out? I mean, you fill them out once a week or once a month?
I do them once a week. This week I had 2 orders come in that I ended up doing 2 orders in 1 week. So it just depends on what I can do. I try to get them out within 3 days of it coming in generally.
Okay. That's not bad. So folks, hit the link. Go out and get yourself a copy of this Western sci-fi graphic novel, so that you'll be more prepared for when Josh hits the crowdfunding scene. When do you think you're going to do that?
Well, it's going to take me a while to write this other novel, so it'll be a minute, but I'll definitely let you all know. And if you guys, obviously buying a book would be a huge, huge service, and I thank you so much if you do. But otherwise, if you want to support me as well, just check me out on my Instagram at Josh Wilson Creates and follow me there, and you'll be apprised of all the different things that I end up doing in the future. So.
Yeah, and Herwenberg is our wonderful wrench in the chat. He finds all the links for us. You can follow Josh on Twitter at Joshua Duane. Which is
thank you very much, Herwenberg. I appreciate that.
But and from there, I'm assuming that they can, link tree out to all your other socials.
Exactly.
Excellent. Yes, the cover is very iconic and evocative. The Morgaine soundtrack in the background.
I appreciate that. I tried to make it a fine line between something very different than a traditional comic book cover, because it does when it's on a shelf, it definitely stands out. And I hope it didn't go too far in the other direction, but I do really like what we came up with. I think it's a really beautiful image.
Yeah, I love it. And I got to play around with it a little bit for the thumbnail, and just kind of stretched it out a little bit. That's all I really did. I'm not a graphic designer.
Neither am I.
I have PowerPoint. And I'm like, okay, I know that's the right size, so just fill out the screen and make it work. Josh, I don't know what more to ask you about this. Otherwise,
I really appreciate you having me on and taking a chance and supporting indie creators, and it just really means a lot to me, and I really appreciate it.
Well, we're glad to have you on. Folks in the chat, we're also glad to have you guys here. Like I said, we don't have a show without you. I encourage you to click the link, get yourself a copy of this, and start spreading the word so that, when the crowdfund does happen, let's say next year, maybe later this year, you'll be able to say, yeah, I know that guy. He does a good book. And with that, folks, as always, while you were here, we just hope you had a blast. Good night, everybody.
Bye-bye.